And by the way, if Obama were a tyrant, you think these are the numbers he puts up? Tyrants don't have to fight that hard for Ohio. And generally, forget about utterly tanking your first debate. Tyrants don't show up for those. The real debate for tyrants is how big you want to go with the sunglasses and epaulets. You know, I guess it can be best summed up by the old homily. First, they came for the guns, and I said nothing because they really didn't. We'll be right back.
I want to follow up to something you just said there, because as you know, I mean, the 94 assault weapons ban, it didn't apply to weapons that were purchased before 1994. Right. What would you do about the millions of, specifically, assault weapons that are already in circulation? What do you do about those?
Well, there are approximately 5 million, to your point, Craig. We have to have a buyback program, and I support a mandatory buyback program. It's got to be smart. We got to do it the right way. But there are 5 million at least. Some estimate as many as 10 million. And we're going to have smart public policy that's about taking those off the streets, but doing it in the right way.
Hello there. I'm proud to say that this is my 4th video in a row. The previous 3 days, I've released a video every single day, and I'm going to keep on going for as long as I can. Hey, if you watch this channel, if you've liked any of my videos and you're not subscribed, please go ahead and subscribe. I normally say it at the end, but this time I'll say it at the beginning. But anyways, let's get into it. Before moving to the right, I used to be a leftist. In fact, I'm still registered to vote as a Democrat. You see, I first registered to vote as a Democrat when George W. Bush was president. I didn't like him very much. I didn't think he was a good president. I thought he was involved in a bunch of globalist bullshit. I didn't like all the American jobs that were constantly being outsourced to other countries. I didn't like that he invaded Iraq right after we had invaded Afghanistan. And I think the way he conducted the U.S. Armed Services in those wars were pretty corrupt. I think that in a lot of ways, he and his political allies had their own pockets lined with cash from all those military contracts. Back then, I didn't like right-wing people because I felt they always strawmanned the left. They always exaggerated the left-wing positions to make them seem ridiculous. They didn't seem to want to have an honest political discussion, in my view. So the right would complain that, oh, the government is trying to take away all of our guns. They're going to take away your Second Amendment right. And I always thought that this was absolutely ridiculous. No, people in the left aren't trying to take your guns. They just believe that, for example, if you buy a gun at a gun show, maybe you should have to pass a background check, just like someone would buying it from any other gun store. To me, the idea that leftists were plotting to disarm the entire country was just a stupid straw man that only right-wing people really believed. When Barack Obama became president and in the months leading up to his administration taking over, there were all these news reports of people going out and buying assault rifles, stocking up on ammunition. And I thought those people were idiots. Barack Obama's not going to take your guns away, I would think to myself and chuckle. But here we are, leading up to the 2020 election, and all of the presidential candidates on the left are in fact arguing for gun confiscation. Kamala Harris says that she's going to confiscate 10 million guns. And it's not just Kamala Harris. Beto O'Rourke.
Hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15, your AK-47.
Joe Biden. A lot of the people running are arguing that they're going to confiscate all the guns. The right-wing caricature or straw man of the left's advocacy for gun control has in fact become a reality now. These mainstream Democratic political candidates are running on a platform of confiscating the guns from individual Americans. Now, I haven't really talked about guns all that much on this channel. to be honest with you, it's not a political issue that really interests me all that much. I've talked about on this channel before that I don't put a whole lot of stock into individual rights. So something like the Second Amendment, the right for individuals to bear arms, is not something that terribly interests me all that much. That being said, as someone who doesn't really feel strongly on the issue of gun control regulation, confiscating 10 million guns is batshit insane. And it makes absolutely no sense. No sense at all. Why are these Democratic candidates coming out in favor of gun confiscation? What political advantage can they possibly have on taking the most far left Looney Tunes position on this issue that they possibly can? Imagine how this is going to play out in the debates. So let's say Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, whoever becomes the Democratic nominee, and they're going to have a debate with Trump, and they're going to talk about gun control. Donald Trump is going to get up there and talk about how he banned bump stocks, how he's enacted other regulations regarding firearms, including he's tacitly supported certain red flag laws. And he's going to look like someone reasonable who is taking a moderate stance on the issue. The Trump administration's position on gun control is not radical. In fact, it seems pretty pragmatic. And then you're going to have Kamala Harris up there saying that she's going to go and confiscate 10 million guns. She's going to look ridiculous. That's not going to be appealing to most people. I don't even think that most Democrats would agree with that. Imagine how stupid this policy would be. Imagine, okay, so Kamala Harris does her executive order and orders the police to collect everyone's firearms. You're going to send the police door to door, knock on the door and be like, yeah, you're going to have to hand your gun over because Kamala Harris is president now and we don't give a crap that you bought this gun or that the whole history of the Second Amendment. People are going to not like this and they're going to respond by getting in the gunfights with the police. Even if you believe that 95% of people are just going to hand over the gun, which seems unlikely to me, but even if you assume that, the police having to get in armed gunfights with 5% of the entire population of the United States, or at least the population who owns guns, which is probably the majority of the population of the United States, can you imagine the amount of carnage, of social problems, of civil unrest that doing something like that would cause? And then what are we going to do? All the people who fight with the police, who don't want to give up the guns, or who hide guns, are we going to prosecute those people and send them to prison? Is that what these left-wing Democratic candidates want? They want to criminalize something that vast majority of the country does? This is a stupid losing issue for these Democratic candidates to take. And I can't understand why they're taking it. It seems like the left and the Democratic Party are very lost right now. And I mean, it's not just this that they're taking a radical position on. I mean, look at the things that they've been proposing recently. Listen to how insane these things are. Health insurance for illegal immigrants, the ending of all migrant detention centers, and the re-implementation of catch and release, which is effectively would make the United States borders 100% open. Reparations for slavery, taxpayer-funded sexual reassignment surgery for people on welfare who identify themselves as transgendered, free college and free health care for everyone, adding Supreme Court justices for purely partisan political purposes, impeaching a Supreme Court justice, making Washington, D.C. in Puerto Rico in the States for purely partisan political reasons. Banning all carbon emissions. These are all things that leading Democratic candidates for the office of the presidency have been proposing. These are all far left things that are far outside the mainstream of what ordinary people want. And okay, maybe you could muster support for one of these things, but a lot of the candidates, they're throwing all of these out there. I don't understand it. It doesn't make any sense to me. You notice when Trump ran, who, the left acts like Trump is the most radical person of all time, but he was only really far right on a single issue, which was immigration. He wanted to build this wall, which no one had seriously proposed before, and he seemed really intent on that issue. But aside from that, he seemed rather moderate. He was a lot less economically libertarian than many of his opponents. And he took this unique position on trade, which no major presidential candidate in recent history has really took as part of their campaign. Barack Obama gave lip service to it, but he really did nothing to address the issue or change the status quo when he became president. If the Democrats think that they can just go super far to the left and that'll balance out Trump, they're making a mistake. Trump is a lot less conservative and a lot less right-wing than Democrats seem to believe him to be. So that's really all I have to say on this matter. The left has become its own caricature. Unless something major happens to fix this issue, Donald Trump's going to win the next election in a landslide.